The framework of this exhibition is 3 significant othernesses, and the otherness that you significantly work with is that of bacteria.
Yes.
So, and how far can you explain why you have chosen extremophile bacteria for the as a very starting point of the great metal lava?
Well, I chose to work with an extremophile organism, in this case, Cupriobitis metalli-durans, because it has the ability to be able to reduce heavy metals. So it's kind of a type of bioremediator. And if you put the organism in the correct atmosphere, in the right conditions, it has the ability to be able to reduce heavy metals from, let's say, lakes or oceans. In this case, we're reducing gold chloride, which is the dissolved form of gold. And it's able to convert it or transmute it into gold or 24 karat gold that you could use, like, let's say, in jewelry, or the gold that we more commonly know.
So the gold is floating on the street in our rivers?
Yes, and not everywhere, but the oceans, the lakes, rivers usually have somewhere between 10 and 30 parts per million of dissolved gold. Similar to like when you, for those that don't know what that means, is that if you have salt and you take salt and you place it into a glass of water, it dissolves. So you can no longer access the salt. So somehow you have to be able to remove it, and that usually requires a lot of energy. But the thing is, with the extremophile, the microorganism inside of here, in this flask, they're able to do it with very little energy. So it makes it a much more efficient process.
So you're in fact producing gold, or letting these guys work for you. So they are this primitive workhorses that squares a circle of a kind of very ancient alchemist process and question.
Yeah, well, they're not actually making gold, but they're like the alchemists, they're transmuting material. So they're taking one form of material and changing it into another. So in that way, the microorganism is, yes, it's working for us to take the gold that can't be used in a dissolved format and turning it into something that we can use. Much what like the alchemist described, with circling the square, circling the triangle, where they're taking one form and converting it into something else.
How important for you is the reference to alchemy?
Alchemy, that reference to me is significant in terms of what artists do today, because alchemy was concerned not only with understanding epistemological knowledge, but also bettering the self at the same time. So while we're learning something, while we're learning how the world works and how it functions, we're also trying to better ourselves. And to me, that's very much what the artist is doing too, is that you're trying to understand how you fit in culture and how you can change and reflect what culture has, instead of just solving a problem. So for me, alchemy is very apropos in terms of what we do today.
So technically speaking, what does this installation do? Well, technically speaking, and then also metaphorically speaking.
Okay. So technically speaking, this is a bioreactor, and essentially it's a sustained culture. So most of the time when you grow a microorganism, what we usually think of growing microorganisms, we put it in a petri dish, and you do just a single one-off culture. This is a continuous culture, or a chemostatic culture. So inside of this box, fluid is being pumped in from this tube here, and then it's being pumped out. So nutrients are continuously being pushed inside of the reactor, and then the waste comes out. And then inside of the flask, of course, the microorganism is growing a colony that's taking the material that's coming in, that's essentially containing the dissolved gold chloride, which is a heavy metal. It's a toxin, like arsenic. And as that heavy metal is going in here, the bacteria is bioremediating the solution, removing the gold from the gold chloride, and then it does that by placing hydrogen into the system, which is what's bubbling over here. So it's basically creating the perfect conditions for Cupriobitis to be able to take the gold and remove it from the gold chloride, and basically bioremediate the solution inside the flask. That's technically what it's doing. And then metaphorically, the piece is commenting on not only on greed in terms of humanity, our desire to be able to perfect nature, right? So to be able to, essentially it's cleaning up our mess. But human beings have always, had the desire to be able to bend nature to do our will, right? To be able to make it do the things that we need it to do. The paradox, I guess, is that we're now using contemporary science to solve an old riddle, which was the old alchemy problem, right? Which was the ability to be able to transmute materials into anything that we want them to be. And we were never able to successfully complete that, as far as I know. But contemporary science has been able to complete that process. But instead of using chemistry, in terms of classical chemistry to solve the problem, we're using modern microbiology techniques.